Welcome to our peaceful corner of the internet, where stories are here to help you drift off to a place of rest and calm. Tonight we invite you to settle down, let go of the day's worries, and sink into a soothing bedtime story crafted just for you. Each word, each scene is carefully designed to help your mind unwind, your body relax, and your thoughts slow down. So, find a comfortable position, take a deep breath, and let the story gently guide you to a restful night's sleep. Close your eyes, listen closely, and let tonight's journey begin. The first snowflakes of winter began to drift down from the sky, delicate and quiet, like tiny stars escaping the heavens to grace the earth with their presence. In Paris, the onset of snow transformed the city, casting it in a magical light that made even the most familiar streets seem like scenes from a dream. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a canvas of soft purples and dusky blues as the city's lights began to twinkle like scattered jewels against the dimming sky. The snow was a gentle hush over the Parisian evening, blanketing the city in a serene calm. It fell lightly at first, small flurries swirling in the air as if hesitant to land. But soon the flakes grew thicker, drifting down in a graceful dance, each one unique and fleeting. The rooftops of Haussmann buildings quickly took on a fresh layer of white, softening their outlines and lending them a fairy tale charm. The normally bustling streets grew quieter as the snow muffled the sounds of the city, turning even the steady clip of hurried footsteps into a softer, more tentative patter. In the heart of the city, the Seine River flowed slowly, its surface reflecting the falling snowflakes like glimmers of starlight. The bridges, illuminated by warm golden lights, arched elegantly over the water, their stone surfaces now dusted with white. Pont Neuf, the oldest bridge, seemed timeless under its snowy cover, as if it had been transported back to an era of horse-drawn carriages and whispered romance. The street lamps lining the riverbanks cast a golden glow onto the snow-covered cobblestones, creating a pathway of light that seemed to lead into a world beyond the everyday. The scent of freshly baked bread and sweet pastries drifted from nearby boulangeries, mingling with the crisp, clean air of the snow-laden night. In the quiet, a faint sound of a distant accordion could be heard, playing a soft melody that carried the spirit of Paris, melancholic yet hopeful, nostalgic yet eternally romantic. It was a tune that seemed to echo off the buildings, wrapping around the city like a comforting blanket. Parisians, wrapped in scarves and heavy coats, moved more slowly than usual, as if savoring the peaceful transformation. Couples strolled arm in arm, their faces lit with the quiet joy that comes from sharing a beautiful moment. Children, wide-eyed with wonder, caught snowflakes on their tongues, laughing as they felt the tiny, cold kisses melt away. A group of friends gathered at a cafe terrace, huddled under an awning as they sipped steaming mugs of chocolate chaud, the rich aroma rising in curls of vapor. Even the normally impatient taxi drivers seemed to accept the slower pace, their cars moving cautiously through the slushy streets, the snow softening the harsh sound of tires on asphalt. Montmartre, with its winding, narrow streets, looked particularly enchanting under the snowfall. The iconic white dome of the Sacré-Cœur Basilica stood out even more brightly against the darkening sky, crowned by the falling snow that gave it an almost ethereal glow. Artists continued to paint in the square despite the chill, their canvases capturing the quiet poetry of a snow-kissed Paris. The steps leading up to the basilica were blanketed in white, and visitors paused, their breath visible in the cold air, to take in the sweeping view of the city below, where the snowflakes fell like tiny diamonds. In the Jardin des Tuileries, the bare branches of the trees were lined with a delicate frosting of snow. The garden, usually bustling with people, was now serene, the paths covered in a light dusting of white. Statues of classical figures seemed to stand watch over the tranquil scene, their stone faces softened by the snow. The fountains were silent, their waters stilled by the cold, but the sound of the snow falling, almost imperceptible, like the whisper of feathers, filled the air with a gentle music of its own. Along the Champs-Élysées, the famous avenue sparkled under the festive holiday lights, which twinkled more brightly against the snowy backdrop. The grand trees lining the boulevard were strung with lights, their branches heavy with snow that glittered like 1,000 tiny stars. Shoppers, their arms laden with bags, hurried from store to store, their footsteps leaving soft impressions in the fresh snow. There was a palpable sense of magic in the air, as if the city itself was celebrating the arrival of winter. In the shadows of Notre Dame, the great Gothic cathedral stood solemn and majestic, its gargoyles dusted with snow as if they had been crowned by nature herself. The plaza in front of the cathedral was quieter than usual, the snow dampening the noise of the city. A lone violinist played a hauntingly beautiful tune, his music blending with the soft sound of the falling snow. The notes seemed to rise up to the sky, as if offering a prayer of thanks for this peaceful night. The Eiffel Tower, often the most striking feature of the Parisian skyline, seemed almost modest tonight, its iron frame softened by the snow that clung to its beams. Lights twinkled along its length, casting a gentle glow that spread out across the city. From the top, the view was breathtaking. Paris laid out like a snow-dusted map, the river winding through like a silver ribbon, the buildings and streets softened by the fresh snowfall. It was a sight that reminded all who saw it of the timeless beauty of this city, its ability to transform even the ordinary into something magical. As the night deepened, the snow continued to fall, blanketing Paris in a quiet peace. The city, known for its vibrancy and noise, had been transformed into a place of stillness and reflection. The snow brought with it a sense of calm, a moment of pause in the constant motion of life. It was a Paris both familiar and new, a city that, under the tender touch of winter's first snow, felt like a gift waiting to be unwrapped. The air was crisp and cold, a gentle breeze carrying the promise of more snow as the main character made their way along the banks of the Seine. The city was quieter tonight, a calm settling over Paris as the snowfall softened the usual clamor. As they walked, the character took in a deep breath, feeling the cold air fill their lungs, bringing with it the clean, faintly sweet scent of snow and the distant aroma of roasting chestnuts from a vendor somewhere near the bridge. The snow had left a delicate white layer over everything, turning the world into a softened landscape of light and shadow. Underfoot, the snow gave way with a satisfying crunch, each step leaving a fresh imprint along the cobblestone path that wound alongside the river. It was a sound that felt grounding and immediate, reminding the character of their own small presence in this vast and timeless city. The Seine itself was a mirror of stillness, its usually rippling surface now calm and reflective, as if the falling snow had cast a spell of tranquility over it. The water was dark, nearly black in places, but it gleamed in the light of the street lamps that lined the riverbanks. Golden reflections danced on the surface, interrupted only occasionally by the faintest of ripples as the snowflakes landed and melted into the water. The light was soft, casting long shadows that flickered and swayed gently with the breeze. It was the kind of light that made the world seem warmer, despite the cold, illuminating the stone bridges that arched over the river like silent sentinels watching over the night. The character paused for a moment, coming to a stop beneath one of the ornate street lamps. The glow of the lamp bathed them in a circle of light, the snow around them glinting like tiny diamonds. They watched the flakes drift down, their movements almost imperceptible in the stillness. It was as if the world had slowed to match the gentle descent of the snow, each flake falling with a quiet grace. There was something mesmerizing about it, the way each snowflake took its time, swirling and twirling before finally settling on the ground or the water below. They continued walking, passing a small cafe with its doors closed for the night. The chairs and tables outside were covered in a thin layer of snow, looking like tiny, untouched landscapes. Through the window, they could see the warm glow of a few candles left burning, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The character imagined the laughter and conversation that had filled the cafe earlier in the evening, now replaced by the serene silence of the snowfall. The character turned their gaze back to the river. The sounds of the city were muted, the usual hum of traffic softened by the snow. There was a stillness here that felt rare and precious, a kind of peace that could only be found in the quiet moments between dusk and dawn. The only sounds were the occasional distant ring of a church bell and the faint splash of water as a small boat drifted slowly downstream, its lantern casting a soft glow that reflected on the water in long, wavering lines. The character stopped at the edge of one of the bridges and leaned against the stone railing, taking a moment to look out across the river. The buildings on the opposite bank were dusted with snow, their rooftops white against the deep blue of the night sky. The trees that lined the riverbank stood still and silent, their bare branches traced with frost, each one looking like a delicate, intricate sketch against the sky. For a moment, the character closed their eyes, letting the sounds of the river and the city wash over them. They could feel the pulse of Paris here, slower and softer than usual but still unmistakably alive. It was a sensation of connection, as if they were not merely a visitor in this city, but a part of its very fabric, woven into the quiet tapestry of this snowy evening. When they opened their eyes again, they noticed a couple walking hand in hand a little further along the path, their figures silhouetted against the light of the street lamps. They walked slowly, laughing softly, their heads bent close together as if sharing a secret meant only for the two of them. The characters smiled to themselves, feeling a sudden warmth in their chest, a reminder that even in the stillness, life continued to flow like the river itself, steady and constant. They resumed their walk, the soft crunch of snow accompanying their steps. They passed a small bookshop with its light still on, the window displaying a collection of old, leather-bound books that seemed to invite passers-by into a world of stories and dreams. The character hesitated for a moment, peering inside, before continuing on. Tonight, the story was out here, along the river, in the quiet magic of a snowy Parisian night. As they approached the end of the riverbank walk, the grand Notre Dame Cathedral came into view, its twin towers rising like dark silhouettes against the sky. The cathedral looked even more majestic under the snow, its Gothic spires touched with white, as if nature itself had decided to bless the old stones. The character felt a sense of reverence here, as though they were standing at the edge of something timeless and sacred. In the glow of the streetlights, the snow continued to fall, unhurried and soft. The character turned to look back at the path they had walked, now nearly covered in a fresh layer of snow, their footprints fading slowly into the white. They stood for a moment longer, taking it all in, the stillness of the river, the gentle glow of the lights, the quiet hum of the city in the background. For a fleeting moment they felt perfectly at peace, as if they were not just walking through Paris but a part of its dream, a winter dream where time slowed and the world softened, cradled in the silence of falling snow. The character pushed open the door of a small cafe tucked away on a quiet side street, a tiny bell chiming softly above as they stepped inside. It was as if they had crossed a threshold into another world, leaving behind the cold, snowy night and entering a haven of warmth and comfort. The first sensation that hit them was the gentle embrace of heat, the kind of warmth that seeps into your bones and chases away the chill. The cafe was cozy and intimate, with only a few tables scattered about, each one lit by a small, flickering candle that cast a golden glow across the room. The air was filled with the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee and sweet pastries, a smell that carried with it memories of lazy mornings and happy conversations. It was the scent of simplicity, of butter melting into warm croissants, of rich espresso swirling in small porcelain cups. There was a softness to the atmosphere here, a sense of unhurried time that made it feel like the rest of the world could wait just a little while longer. The character removed their coat, shaking off the last few snowflakes that clung to the fabric, and took a seat at a small wooden table near the window. From here, they had a view of the snowy street outside, where the flakes continued to fall gently, catching in the light of the street lamps. It was a picturesque scene, the snow painting the city in shades of white and gold, but the character felt a wave of gratitude for being inside, wrapped in the cafe's cozy embrace. A waiter approached, offering a polite smile as he placed a menu on the table. He was an older man, with a kind face and a familiar ease in his movements, as if he had spent his entire life in places like this. The character glanced over the menu, though they already knew what they wanted. A hot cup of chocolate showed, rich and thick, the kind that could warm you from the inside out. They placed their order and settled back in their chair, letting their shoulders relax as they soaked in the atmosphere. Around them, the cafe was a gentle hum of life. A couple sat at the table across the room, leaning in close to share a whispered conversation, their heads almost touching as they laughed quietly together. Near the counter, an older woman with a red beret sipped slowly from a tiny cup of espresso, her eyes closed as if savoring every last drop. Two friends, seated by the fire in the corner, spoke in hushed tones, their hands gesturing animatedly as they discussed something that made them both smile. The sound of their voices was low and soothing, blending together like a comforting murmur that filled the space without overwhelming it. The character let out a small sigh, feeling the tension of the day begin to melt away. It was easy to feel at peace here, surrounded by the soft lighting and the steady warmth of the room. The walls were lined with shelves filled with books and bottles of wine, and above the counter hung a chalkboard menu written in elegant cursive, listing the day's specials. Tiny framed pictures adorned the walls, black and white photographs of old Parisian streets, a snapshot of the Eiffel Tower from decades ago, a candid photo of laughing children running through a market square. It felt like a place steeped in memories, a space that held the stories of countless visitors who had sought refuge here over the years. When the waiter returned, he placed a steaming mug of chocolate chaude in front of the character, along with a small plate holding a single perfectly golden croissant. The character wrapped their hands around the mug, savoring the warmth that spread through their fingers. They brought the cup to their lips and took a slow sip, closing their eyes for a moment as the rich, velvety chocolate coated their tongue. It was thick and smooth, just sweet enough, with a hint of vanilla that lingered pleasantly after each sip. It was the kind of drink that made you feel like a child again, like you were being wrapped in a hug from the inside. They picked up the croissant next, tearing off a small piece. It was warm and flaky, the layers of pastry melting into buttery softness on their tongue. The taste brought a smile to their face, a simple joy that felt like it was enough in this moment. They gazed out the window as they ate, watching the snow continue to fall, blanketing the street in silence. The light from the cafe reflected on the window pane, creating a soft, golden haze that blurred the line between inside and out, making the snowy street seem like part of a dream. As they sipped their chocolate chaud and nibbled on the croissant, the character felt a profound sense of contentment wash over them. It was a rare feeling, this kind of peace, a moment suspended in time where everything felt perfectly balanced. Outside, the world might be cold and bustling, but here, in this tiny cafe, there was warmth and quiet, a sense of shared solitude among strangers who had all chosen this place as a sanctuary for the evening. The character took another slow sip of their drink, feeling the chocolate's warmth settle into their chest. They allowed themselves to simply be, to exist without hurry or worry, cradled in the soft glow of the cafe lights. It was a reminder of life's small, quiet pleasures, the taste of good chocolate, the comfort of a warm room on a cold night, the simple joy of watching snow fall. As the evening stretched on, they knew they would have to leave eventually, to step back out into the snowy night and continue on their way. But for now, they stayed a little longer, letting the peace of this cozy corner of Paris seep into their bones. It was enough to be here, in this moment, part of the quiet hum of life in a city that felt infinite yet intimate all the same. The character made their way up the winding, cobbled streets of Montmartre, the highest point in Paris. With each step, the slope grew steeper, and the view of the city below slowly began to reveal itself. Tonight, the path was hushed under a layer of fresh snow, muffling the sounds of the few people still out and about. The lights of the city glimmered in the distance, casting a warm golden glow that flickered between the buildings and up the hill, guiding the character onward. The snow had transformed Montmartre into a place of pure magic. The small bohemian neighborhood, usually alive with artists and musicians, now felt like a serene winter village, its narrow streets and staircases softened under a thick blanket of white. As the character walked, they noticed the way the snow settled on the rooftops, turning them into fluffy pillows that reflected the light from the street lamps. The wrought iron balconies were draped with delicate lines of frost, and the bare trees that lined the streets wore a sparkling coat of snow, their branches gently bowed under the weight. The character passed a small cafe with its lights still glowing softly, even though the tables outside were empty. A few snowflakes drifted down lazily, landing on the iron chairs and melting away in a tiny puff of steam. They could smell the faint aroma of roasting chestnuts and mulled wine from a nearby stand, a reminder that even in winter's chill, the heart of Paris beat on with its comforting traditions. Reaching the top of the hill, the character arrived at the base of the Sacré-Cœur Basilica, its white domes gleaming like a crown against the dark sky. The basilica stood in quiet grandeur, a stark contrast to the bustling city far below. It was as though the building itself was watching over Paris, a silent guardian perched atop the hill. The character paused here for a moment, taking in the scene, feeling a sense of awe in the face of such beauty. The square in front of the basilica was nearly empty, the usual crowds of tourists long gone, leaving behind only a few quiet figures, like shadows against the snow-covered ground. The character walked to the edge of the square, where the hill sloped down steeply, offering an unobstructed view of the city below. They leaned against the stone railing, taking in the breathtaking panorama of Paris, laid out before them like a snow-dusted dream. From this height, the city seemed both vast and intimate. The Eiffel Tower rose in the distance, its iron silhouette softened by the snow, twinkling with thousands of lights. The Seine cut a dark ribbon through the heart of Paris, the bridges arching gracefully over the water, their surfaces gleaming with a layer of ice. The rooftops of the buildings covered in snow stretched out in an endless sea of white, only broken by the occasional spire or chimney. The lights from the windows below twinkled like stars fallen to earth, casting a warm golden glow against the cool blue of the snowy night. The character felt a deep sense of tranquility wash over them, standing here at the top of Montmartre, looking down on the city. The usual noise of Paris, the traffic, the clamor of voices, the hum of daily life, was softened and muted, as if the snow had laid a gentle hand over it all, telling the city to rest for a while. It was a rare, precious kind of silence, one that made the character feel like they were the only person awake in all of Paris, witnessing something secret and sacred. They closed their eyes for a moment, letting the stillness settle around them, breathing in the cold, crisp air. There was a sense of timelessness here, a feeling that this place had witnessed countless winter nights like this one, had seen generations of Parisians stand in this very spot, gazing out at their city, lost in their own thoughts and dreams. When they opened their eyes again, they noticed a small group of street musicians gathered in a corner of the square, their instruments almost hidden under layers of scarves and hats. Despite the cold, they played softly, their music blending with the quiet night air. The sound of the violin, light and haunting, drifted up into the sky, carried away on the snowflakes. It was a simple, beautiful tune, one that seemed to capture the essence of the evening, the calm, the magic, the gentle melancholy of winter. The characters smiled to themselves, feeling a wave of warmth despite the cold. It was moments like this, they realized, that made the city feel alive. Not the grand gestures or the iconic landmarks, but the small, quiet experiences, the sound of a violin in the snow, the golden glow of a street lamp, the peaceful hush of the world blanketed in white. As they lingered there, watching the city below, a gentle flurry of snow began to fall once more, the flakes dancing in the light of the street lamps before settling on the ground. The character held out their hand, watching as a single snowflake landed on their palm, its delicate crystalline structure visible for just a moment before it melted away. It felt like a tiny, fleeting piece of the night, a small gift from the city. Eventually, the character knew it was time to head back down the hill, to leave this serene perch and return to the streets below. But they took one last look at the view, imprinting the image of the snow-covered city into their memory, a Paris that was softer, quieter, wrapped in the tender embrace of winter. They turned and began to make their way down the steps, the snow crunching softly under their feet, the music of the violin fading into the distance as they descended. It was a night they knew they would remember, a moment of stillness and magic in the heart of Paris, a city that even in winter's chill managed to warm the soul. Seeking shelter from the biting winter chill, the character makes their way down a narrow snow-covered alley off the main square of Montmartre. Here, tucked away like a secret, they find an old bookstore, asterisk, Les Bouquinistes. Asterisk, its modest exterior glowing warmly through frosted glass panes. The character hesitates for just a moment, peering inside. It looks like the kind of place where time seems to have stopped, a haven from the cold, a sanctuary of stories. With a soft smile, they push open the heavy wooden door, a small brass bell tinkling overhead to announce their arrival. The warmth envelops them immediately, a comforting embrace compared to the sharp, icy air outside. A faint scent of old paper and leather bindings fills the room, mixed with the subtle aroma of tea brewing somewhere in the back. The air is rich with the musty, sweet scent of books, thousands of them, piled high on shelves that reach the ceiling, crammed into every available space, spilling onto small tables and precarious stacks on the floor. It's a small space, but it feels endless, a labyrinth of pages and stories waiting to be discovered. The bookstore's interior is dimly lit, with golden light from a few scattered lamps casting a soft glow across the room. The flickering flame of a candle near the register adds a touch of magic, casting dancing shadows across the spines of the books. The character notices a small fireplace nestled in the corner, the flames crackling softly, sending out waves of gentle heat. It's a refuge from the snowstorm outside, a cocoon of warmth and nostalgia. They take a slow, meandering stroll through the narrow aisles, running their gloved fingers lightly over the spines of the books. The titles are a mix of French classics and well-worn English novels, poetry collections, and old maps of Paris. Here and there, handwritten notes are tucked into the shelves, recommendations from the shop's owner, who seems to have a deep affection for each book. The character picks up a small cloth-bound volume, feeling its weight in their hand, the texture of the aged fabric rough but comforting. They open it gently, careful not to bend the brittle pages. The book smells of years gone by, of quiet afternoons spent in dusty libraries, and it brings a sense of calm, like reconnecting with an old friend. In a far corner, an elderly man sits hunched over a book, his face lit by the glow of a small desk lamp. He looks up briefly as the character enters, giving a nod of acknowledgement before returning to his reading. It's clear this is a place for solitude and quiet reflection, where words are cherished and the world outside seems far away. The character feels a sense of camaraderie with the few others scattered throughout the shop, strangers brought together by a shared love of books, each lost in their own story. They make their way towards the back of the store, where a small nook offers a comfortable armchair, worn but inviting, placed beside a low table stacked with more books. It's a spot designed for lingering, and the character sinks into the chair with a sigh of contentment, feeling the cold slowly melt away from their bones. They place the book they had picked up on the table, and instead reach for a slim volume of poetry lying on top of the pile. The cover is faded, the title barely legible, but it doesn't matter. They open it to a random page and begin to read. letting the words flow over them like a gentle stream. The murmur of pages turning fills the room, a soft, soothing sound like the rustle of leaves in the wind. Occasionally, the bell above the door rings softly, signaling the arrival of another wanderer seeking refuge. The character watches as a young couple enters, their cheeks flushed pink from the cold. They make their way to a shelf in the corner, speaking to each other in hushed tones, sharing the excitement of discovering a new story together. It's a small moment, but it feels intimate, as though the bookstore itself is a witness to the quiet joys and connections it fosters. After a while, the shopkeeper emerges from behind the counter, a kind-faced woman with a woolen shawl draped around her shoulders. She moves slowly, carefully placing books back on the shelves, her hands deft and practiced. She catches the character's eye and offers a warm, knowing smile, as if she understands exactly why they've come in out of the cold. She disappears into a small back room, only to return moments later with a steaming cup of tea, which she sets down on the table beside the armchair without a word. The character looks up, surprised but grateful, and nods their thanks. They wrap their hands around the mug, feeling the warmth seep into their fingers. The tea is fragrant and earthy, the perfect complement to the atmosphere of the store. As the character takes a sip, they feel a sense of peace wash over them. They lean back in the chair, gazing around at the rows of books, the dim light, the small pockets of silence punctuated by the rustle of pages. It's a rare kind of tranquility, the kind that seems to only exist in places like this, where time slows down and the rush of the world fades away. They stay like this for a long while, letting the poetry in their hands transport them far away, the words a soothing balm against the noise of everyday life. Outside, the snow continues to fall, muffling the sounds of the city, creating a world of soft, white quiet. But here, inside Le Bouquiniste, the character feels cocooned in warmth, surrounded by the silent voices of countless stories. As the evening stretches on, the shop begins to empty, and the character knows it's time to go. They reluctantly close the book, placing it back on the stack, and finish the last sip of their tea. Rising from the chair, they take one last look around, imprinting the cozy, intimate space into their memory. They nod a silent goodbye to the shopkeeper, who returns the gesture with a gentle wave. Stepping back outside, the cold air hits their face, but they feel different now, lighter, calmer, as if they've taken a piece of the bookstore's magic with them. The snow has piled up a little higher, and the city is quieter still, the streets almost deserted. The character pulls their coat tighter around them and starts walking, leaving behind a trail of footprints in the fresh snow. But in their heart, they carry the warmth of Les Bouquinistes, a sanctuary of stories on a cold winter night in Paris. The character steps out of the narrow, winding streets of the Latin Quarter and onto the wide, open space of the Parvis de Notre Dame, where the cathedral rises like a great stone guardian watching over the city. Tonight, Notre Dame is breathtaking, transformed by the gentle snow that continues to fall, dusting its ancient spires and intricate gargoyles with a blanket of soft white. The imposing structure, usually bustling with tourists and locals, now stands in a rare moment of solitude, the square almost empty except for a few scattered figures braving the cold, their footsteps muffled by the fresh snow. The character pauses at the edge of the square, drawing in a deep breath of the crisp, cold air. The snowflakes fall gently around them, landing softly on their coat and settling in their hair. The world feels hushed, as if the city itself has stopped to admire the scene. Even the Seine, flowing lazily just behind the cathedral, seems quieter tonight, its surface like dark glass reflecting the glow of the streetlights and the silhouette of Notre Dame's twin towers. They step closer, drawn towards the grandeur of the cathedral. The stone facade is softened by the snow, the sharp angles of the flying buttresses, and the rose windows smoothed by the white dusting. The character tilts their head back, taking in the full height of the building. The snow has highlighted every groove, every chiseled face of the saints that stand in silent rows above the great doors. There is a serenity here that feels almost sacred, a reverent quiet that envelops them like a comforting embrace. The character can almost hear the echoes of centuries past, the voices of monks chanting in Latin, the distant toll of bells, the murmur of prayers whispered by countless souls seeking solace. They are reminded of the deep history contained within these stone walls, more than 800 years of stories of joy and sorrow, of kings and revolutionaries, of lovers and pilgrims. It's a humbling feeling, standing in the presence of something so ancient, a structure that has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the passing of generations. They wander closer, their boots crunching softly on the snow-covered cobblestones. The large wooden doors of the cathedral are closed for the night, their iron details frosted with a thin layer of ice. The character runs a gloved hand lightly over the wood, feeling the texture beneath their fingers, imagining the countless hands that have touched this same surface over the centuries. The wood feels almost alive with history, imbued with the energy of every person who has stood here before. The character steps back, gazing up at the central rose window, even though it's dark now, unlit from within. In the daylight, the stained glass bursts with color, a kaleidoscope of reds, blues and greens, casting a rainbow of light onto the stone floor inside. But tonight, the window is covered in a thin layer of snow, and the intricate designs are barely visible. Yet there is still a beauty in its quiet, in the way the snow clings to the delicate stone tracery, like lace made of ice. They close their eyes for a moment, letting the sounds of the city fade away. All they hear is the whisper of the snow falling, the distant lapping of the Seine against its banks, and the faint rustle of the wind weaving through the trees that line the square. It's a rare kind of silence, one that feels sacred, as if the entire city is holding its breath in awe of this moment. The character feels a profound sense of calm wash over them, a moment of peace that seems to stretch out, timeless and infinite. When they open their eyes again, the square has changed slightly. A thin layer of fresh snow has covered their tracks, erasing the path they had taken moments before. It's as if the night itself has wiped the slate clean, offering a new beginning. They smile softly, taking one last look at the great cathedral. The gargoyles perched along the roofline seem to watch them with a kind of silent wisdom, their stone faces softened by the snow. It's easy to imagine them coming to life, stretching their wings and shaking off the cold, guardians of the city in the night. The streetlights along the square cast a warm, golden glow, their light reflecting off the snow like tiny stars scattered across the ground. The character turns towards the riverbank, where the waters of the Seine flow gently by. The reflection of Notre Dame shimmers on the surface, distorted slightly by the ripples of the current, as if the cathedral is both here and somewhere far away, a reflection from another time. They stand there for a while, taking it all in, the beauty of the snow-covered Notre Dame, the stillness of the night, the sense of being connected to something much larger than themselves. It's a feeling of awe, but also of warmth and comfort, like being wrapped in a familiar blanket. For a moment, they feel a sense of clarity, as if all the noise and chaos of the world have been stripped away, leaving only this, the quiet, the snow, the ancient stone of the cathedral, and the soft glow of the city lights. Finally, the character turns to leave, their heart a little lighter, their mind a little clearer. They walk slowly, savoring the last few moments in the square, knowing this is a memory they will carry with them for a long time. They cast one final glance back at Notre Dame, standing tall and proud, bathed in the soft light of the snow. It looks like a scene from a dream, something too beautiful to be real. Yet here it is, right before their eyes. With a deep breath, they step away, leaving behind a trail of footprints that will soon be covered by the falling snow. But in their heart, the image of Notre Dame, softened by snow and silence, will remain, a reminder of the quiet magic that can be found in the most unexpected moments of life. After leaving the majestic stillness of Notre Dame behind, the character wanders through the snow-covered streets of Paris, the chill in the air softened by the beauty of the falling snow. The city feels like it's wrapped in a thick, muffled blanket, every sound dampened, every corner softened by a layer of white. They take a turn down a quiet side street, drawn by the promise of something warm and comforting. That's when they notice it. A small bakery, its golden light spilling onto the street, a beacon of warmth against the cold night. This patisserie is unassuming, nestled between two old stone buildings, its window frosted over, but still giving a glimpse of the treasures inside. The character hesitates at the door for a moment, savoring the sight. Through the glass, they can see rows of freshly baked bread, crusty baguettes stacked high, and an array of delicate pastries, their glazed tops glistening in the soft light. The sign above the door reads Boulangerie du Cœur, and it feels like a fitting name, a place where the heart can find solace in something as simple as a warm croissant. As they push open the door, a small brass bell jingles announcing their arrival. The warmth of the bakery rushes out to greet them, carrying with it the heavenly scent of fresh bread, melted butter, and sweet vanilla. It's an intoxicating aroma, and they feel their body relax immediately, the tension of the cold evening melting away in the comfort of this little shop. The air inside is thick with the smell of dough and sugar, and it feels like stepping into a different world, a sanctuary of comfort and delight. Behind the counter, an older woman with kind eyes and flour-dusted hands smiles warmly. Her face is rosy, as though she's spent hours beside a hot oven. Without a word, she nods in welcome, understanding the kind of quiet comfort the character is seeking. There's no rush here, no pressure to make a quick decision. It's the kind of place where people linger, taking their time, savoring each moment. The character steps up to the glass case, which is filled with a dazzling display of pastries. There are golden croissants, their flaky layers perfectly crisp, delicate pain au chocolat with rich, dark chocolate peeking through the seams, and small, sugar-dusted chaussons aux pommes filled with sweet spiced apples. They take it all in, feeling the warmth of the bakery sink into their skin, easing away the cold that had settled into their bones. After a moment of contemplation, they point to a warm, buttery croissant, and the woman behind the counter nods approvingly, as if they've made exactly the right choice. She wraps it in a thin piece of parchment paper, the heat of the pastry seeping through, warming the character's hands. They thank her softly and move to a small table by the window, sitting down with a contented sigh. Outside, the snow continues to fall, the streetlights casting a soft golden glow across the street. It's almost deserted, the only movement the occasional swirl of snowflakes in the wind. The character takes a moment to just watch the world outside, feeling the stillness, the peaceful quiet that comes only in these rare, snowy moments. They turn their attention to the croissant, unwrapping it slowly, savoring the anticipation. The pastry is still warm, and as they break off a piece, it flakes beautifully, golden crumbs scattering onto the table. The first bite is pure bliss. The outside is crisp and delicate, while the inside is soft and buttery, melting on their tongue. It's a simple pleasure, but it feels profound, like a small piece of joy they can hold on to, something pure and uncomplicated, As they continue eating, they close their eyes, letting the flavors fill their senses. The taste brings back memories they can't quite place. Mornings at a kitchen table, the sound of laughter, the feeling of sunlight streaming through a window. It's a moment of nostalgia, of connection to something deeper, something rooted in the comfort of shared meals and the simple act of breaking bread. They realize that this is what they've been craving all along, not just food, but a sense of warmth, of home, of belonging. The bakery is quiet, except for the gentle hum of the ovens and the soft rustle of paper bags as the woman behind the counter wraps up a fresh loaf for another customer. The character glances around, taking in the details, the old, worn wooden floors, the faded photographs of Parisian life pinned to the walls, the small vase of fresh flowers on the counter, a splash of color against the muted tones of the winter night. It's all so simple, but that's what makes it beautiful. It's a place built on small moments of happiness, on the belief that a warm pastry and a smile can make the world a little brighter. Finishing the last bite of the croissant, they lean back in their chair, feeling a wave of contentment wash over them. Outside, the snow has begun to fall a little heavier, but they're in no hurry to leave. For the first time in a long while, they feel completely present, rooted in the here and now, in this small bakery on a quiet street in Paris. Eventually, the woman behind the counter comes over, carrying a small mug of hot chocolate, its surface dusted with a sprinkle of cocoa powder. She places it down with a gentle smile, as if she can sense that the character needs just a little more warmth before they go back out into the cold. They wrap their hands around the mug, feeling the heat seep into their fingers, and take a slow, careful sip. The chocolate is rich and velvety, coating their mouth with sweetness and comfort. They look up, catching the woman's eye, and offer a silent thank you. It's a simple gesture, but it feels like an exchange of kindness, a quiet moment of understanding between two strangers. The character knows they'll remember this place long after they've left. The taste of the croissant, the warmth of the hot chocolate, the feeling of being wrapped in the coziness of the bakery while the snow fell outside. When they finally stand to leave, they do so reluctantly, taking one last look around the little bakery that had offered them such a peaceful respite. The woman waves them off with a soft bonne nuit, and they smile, stepping back out into the snowy night. The cold air nips at their cheeks, but it doesn't feel as sharp anymore. They walk away, the taste of butter and chocolate lingering on their tongue, carrying with them a small, glowing ember of warmth from the bakery, a piece of joy to light the way through the quiet, snowy streets of Paris. The night is serene as the character steps onto the Champs-Élysées, a street known for its grandeur, now transformed by the touch of winter. The snow falls gently, like delicate flakes of powdered sugar, dusting the wide boulevard. It settles on the trees lining the avenue, coating their bare branches with a fine white layer, turning them into sparkling sculptures that glimmer under the glow of the streetlights. It's a beautiful, quiet night, the kind where time seems to slow down, allowing every moment to be savored. The character takes a deep breath, feeling the crispness of the air fill their lungs, invigorating and pure. There's a certain kind of magic in the stillness, the way the city sounds are softened, muffled by the blanket of snow that covers the ground. The usual hustle and bustle of the Champs-Élysées is absent tonight, replaced by a tranquil quiet, as if Paris itself has paused to admire the snowfall. The character begins to walk slowly, savoring the peacefulness, each step sinking slightly into the soft snow with a satisfying crunch. The wide boulevard stretches out before them, framed by rows of tall, symmetrical trees whose branches arch overhead like a canopy dusted with white. The street is lined with charming cafes and boutiques, Their windows aglow with warm light, casting a golden hue onto the snowy sidewalks. The festive lights that drape across the avenue twinkle like tiny stars, reflecting off the snow and creating a soft, dreamy atmosphere. It feels like walking through a painting, the kind of scene one might only find in a postcard or a dream. The character moves at a leisurely pace, unhurried, allowing the moment to sink in. They look around, taking in the details, the snowflakes clinging to the glass of shop windows, the laughter of a couple huddled together under an umbrella, the steam rising from the coffee cups of those sitting outside, braving the cold under the heat of patio lamps. It's a scene of quiet joy, of people sharing a moment of togetherness in the city's winter embrace. As they walk further along, the character reaches a small, open plaza where the Arc de Triomphe stands tall at the end of the boulevard, its silhouette softened by the falling snow. The monument, usually imposing with its grand arches and intricate carvings, seems gentler tonight, like a guardian watching over the city with a calm, protective presence. The snow highlights every groove and detail, giving the stone a soft, ethereal glow. The character pauses for a moment, standing still, letting the beauty of the scene wash over them. They continue walking, feeling the light snowflakes landing softly on their face, cool and fleeting, melting almost instantly against their warm skin. There's a childlike delight in it, the way the snow seems to dance in the air, caught by the wind in little swirling patterns. They tilt their head back, watching the snow fall against the backdrop of the dark sky, feeling a sense of connection to the world around them, as if they're part of the city's winter song. The shops and cafes become sparser as they move further down the Champs-Élysées, giving way to a quieter, more residential area. The lights are dimmer here, and the snow lies undisturbed on the ground, creating a pristine, untouched landscape. The characters' footsteps leave a trail behind them, a simple pattern etched into the fresh snow. They can hear the soft murmur of the Seine in the distance, its waters flowing steadily, a constant companion to the city's rhythm. The character takes a moment to stop by one of the benches lining the sidewalk. It's covered in a thin layer of snow, but they brush it off with a gloved hand and sit down, feeling the cold seep through their coat, grounding them in the present moment. They watch as a few other people pass by, an elderly man walking his dog, the animal's small paws leaving tiny prints behind. A young couple, hand in hand, their heads bent close together as they share a quiet conversation. A woman with a shopping bag, hurrying home before the snow gets any heavier. The character feels a deep sense of contentment, a rare kind of peace that comes when everything aligns just right. The beauty of the snow, the quiet of the night, the glow of the city lights. They're aware of the simplicity of it, how it's just a walk, just snow falling on a familiar street, yet it feels profound. It's a moment they know they'll remember long after the snow has melted, long after winter has passed. Rising from the bench, they continue their walk, heading towards the end of the avenue where the Place de la Concorde lies. The large square is almost empty, its fountains silent, their statues lightly dusted with snow. The character looks out across the open space, taking in the view of the Luxor obelisk, the towering monument rising up into the night sky, its tip glinting in the light. In the distance, the Eiffel Tower sparkles, its lights twinkling through the haze of falling snow. They take a deep breath, feeling the cold air fill their lungs and then exhale, watching their breath form a small cloud that drifts away into the night. The city feels like it's holding its breath too, wrapped in the quiet beauty of this snowy evening. The character's heart feels light, their mind clear, as if the snowfall has washed away all worries, leaving only this moment of stillness, of quiet wonder, With one last look down the snow-covered Champs-Élysées, they turn and head back towards the river, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. It's a simple thing to walk in the snow, to let the city's winter magic seep into their bones, but it's exactly what they needed. And as they disappear into the night, the snow continues to fall, covering their tracks, leaving the Champs-Élysées pristine once more, ready for the next passerby to experience its quiet, snowy charm. As the character approaches the Eiffel Tower, the snowflakes falling gently around them seem to dance in the glow of the city lights. The wide avenues leading up to the landmark are quieter than usual, the crowds thinned by the cold and the snow, giving the area an almost ethereal stillness. The familiar sight of the tower, rising gracefully into the snowy night sky, feels different tonight, softer, more magical, as if the snow has cast a spell of tranquility over Paris. They pause for a moment at the edge of the Champ de Mars, the wide expanse of parkland that stretches out before the tower. Usually bustling with tourists and vendors, it now lies blanketed in a pristine layer of snow. The fresh powder glistens like crushed diamonds under the streetlights, unmarked, except for a few meandering footprints and the trails left by playful children earlier in the day. It's a peaceful scene, filled with a kind of hush that only comes with snowfall. The character feels a sense of awe, as if they've stumbled upon a secret version of Paris, a quieter, gentler city revealed only in winter. They begin to walk slowly across the snow-covered grass, their footsteps creating a soft, muffled crunch. The air is crisp and cold, and they can see their breath forming small clouds that dissipate quickly into the night. Above them, the Eiffel Tower stands like a giant sentinel, its iron latticework outlined against the dark sky. The structure is illuminated with thousands of tiny golden lights that seem to twinkle even brighter against the backdrop of falling snow. It's a sight that never loses its charm, no matter how many times one has seen it. The tower aglow, a beacon of light in the heart of the city. The character moves closer, feeling a magnetic pull towards the tower, drawn in by its beauty and the sense of timelessness it radiates. Snowflakes catch in their hair and on their coat, tiny cold kisses that melt almost instantly. The snow has a way of softening everything, blurring the hard edges of the city, and even the iron of the Eiffel Tower seems gentler tonight, its lines less severe, its form almost graceful against the sky. The wind picks up for a moment, sending a flurry of snow swirling around them, but it's not harsh, just a playful gust that carries the sound of distant laughter and the occasional ring of a bicycle bell. As they reach the base of the tower, they tilt their head back, gazing up at the towering structure. It feels impossibly tall from this angle, the intricate ironwork disappearing into the swirling snow. The lights reflect off the snowflakes, casting a warm golden glow all around. The character can feel the hum of energy in the air, the heartbeat of Paris, as strong and steady as the tower itself. They take a deep breath, letting the cold air fill their lungs, feeling the moment stretch out, infinite and still. Nearby, a small group of people have gathered, huddled together for warmth as they gaze up at the tower in shared wonder. There's a couple, arm in arm, whispering to each other in soft, affectionate tones. A family, the children's faces lit up with pure delight as they point to the sparkling lights. An elderly man standing alone, his hands clasped behind his back, a serene smile on his face as if he's revisiting a fond memory. The character watches them all, feeling a connection, a shared sense of reverence for this moment, this place. Then, as if on cue, the Eiffel Tower begins its hourly light show. The golden lights that bathe the tower suddenly give way to a dazzling display of sparkling white lights, twinkling like stars against the dark sky. The entire structure seems to shimmer, as though it's covered in thousands of tiny diamonds. The character's breath catches in their throat. It's beautiful, breathtaking even, and for a moment, they can't look away. It's as if the tower is alive, pulsating with a kind of joy, a celebration of the city and the season. The snow continues to fall, light and steady, adding to the sense of enchantment. The character feels small, but in a good way, like a part of something much bigger, something timeless. They close their eyes for a moment, letting the sounds of the city fade into the background, the distant hum of traffic, the murmur of voices, the soft patter of snow landing on their coat. All they can feel is a deep, overwhelming sense of peace, a contentment that comes from being fully present, fully immersed in the magic of the moment. When they open their eyes again, the light show is ending, the sparkling lights fading back into the warm golden glow that bathes the tower each night. It feels like the end of a performance, the curtain falling on a spectacular play. The character smiles, a soft, genuine smile that reaches their eyes. They take one last, lingering look up at the Eiffel Tower, committing the scene to memory, the snow falling softly, the lights twinkling, the sky dark and endless above. Turning away, they start to walk back through the park, their footsteps leaving a new set of tracks in the fresh snow. The city feels different now, even quieter, as if it's wrapped in a blanket of dreams. The character's heart feels light, lifted by the beauty they've witnessed, the simple, profound magic of a winter's night in Paris. As they head back towards the river, the sound of their footsteps fades into the distance, leaving only the gentle whisper of the falling snow, the last notes of a perfect winter symphony. The apartment greets them with a comforting embrace, a familiar warmth that contrasts sharply with the chill of the snowy streets outside. The character steps through the door, closing it softly behind them, and for a moment simply stands there, letting the stillness of the space wash over them. The soft light from the lamp beside the couch casts a gentle glow across the room, illuminating the familiar sights. The books stacked neatly on the coffee table, the delicate porcelain figurines arranged on the mantel, the soft cushions of the armchair, inviting them to rest. They exhale, feeling the tension from the day begin to ease away. The peaceful journey through Paris, the quiet walks through the snow-covered street, and the awe-inspiring sight of the Eiffel Tower now feel like distant memories, like a dream they've just returned from. A sense of quiet fulfillment lingers in the air, and with each breath, they feel more grounded, more at peace. The chill from outside is gone, replaced by the comforting warmth of the apartment, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes everything feel cozy and safe. The character walks slowly through the room, savoring the tranquility. The scent of their favorite candle lingers in the air, notes of vanilla, cinnamon, and a hint of lavender, wrapping the room in a soft, comforting fragrance. The world outside is silent, muffled by the thick layer of snow that covers the city, and the quiet hum of the radiator in the corner provides a steady, soothing backdrop. It's the kind of quiet that invites reflection, a space where thoughts can settle and the heart can slow down. They shed their coat and scarf, draping them carefully over the back of the chair. The snow has left a faint trail on the floor, but it doesn't matter. Here, in the warmth of their home, everything feels perfect. They move to the kitchen and prepare a simple cup of tea, the ritual itself bringing a sense of calm. The kettle hums softly as it heats, and the steam curls upward in delicate tendrils, carrying the earthy aroma of chamomile and honey. When the tea is ready, they settle into their favorite chair by the window, cradling the warm mug between their hands. Through the window, the world outside still glows softly under the snowy blanket, the city lights twinkling like distant stars. But here, in the warmth of the apartment, it feels distant and peaceful. The noise of the world has been left behind, the streets, the people, the towering buildings. All of it fades into the background, leaving only the quiet comfort of this small space, this personal sanctuary. The character sips the tea slowly, feeling the warmth spread through their chest, melting away any last remnants of the cold. Each sip brings a little more relaxation, and with it, a deeper sense of contentment. After finishing the tea, they rise and prepare for bed, each movement deliberate, slow, and calming. The soft rustle of the sheets as they climb into bed feels like a small, private victory, a step towards rest. They pull the covers up to their chin, the soft fabric cocooning them in warmth. The city beyond is still, the only sounds now the distant hum of the wind and the occasional soft creak of the apartment settling. As they lay back, the character closes their eyes, letting the peaceful silence wrap around them like a blanket. Their mind drifts back to the day's journey, each step, each moment, each glimpse of beauty that Paris had offered. The quiet stroll along the Seine, the serenity of Montmartre, the snow-covered Champs-Élysées, and the breathtaking glow of the Eiffel Tower. It all seems like a dream now, a collection of peaceful moments, strung together by the soft snowfall that had hung in the air all day. And for the first time in a long while, they feel truly at peace. The weight of the day has finally lifted, and the character feels their body relax into the bed, their muscles unwinding with every breath. They listen to the soft rhythm of their own breathing, the slow rise and fall of their chest, and they let themselves sink deeper into the warmth of the covers. There is no rush, no urgency. In this moment, everything is just as it should be. The world outside can continue its dance, but here, in this small, quiet apartment, time feels like it's standing still. The character's thoughts grow softer, the edges of the day blurring as sleep begins to take hold. The feeling of calm is all-encompassing, the kind of peace that comes when you've spent the day in the world's quietest corners, finding small moments of beauty and allowing them to fill you up. There is nothing else to worry about now, nothing to chase. All that exists is this moment, this stillness, and the warmth that envelopes them. And as sleep finally takes over, the character drifts away with a sense of quiet fulfillment, the kind of peace that comes only from a day well spent and a heart at rest. The last thing they remember is the soft, distant whisper of the snow falling outside, like a lullaby that carries them gently into a dream-filled slumber. What's the most peaceful place you've ever visited? And what made it so special for you?